on a special day today,
Yeah.
and she will tell you why, and it's special for 2 reasons at least, but it's special for 3 reasons because she's here. We want to make sure that you can hear Elke, so if you can't hear her, you just move up here as close as you want to. If somebody next to you is talking, punching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about is you may not understand me. Then you're going to have to raise your hand and say, what did you say? Because I was trying to tell that I bought this cup at Ross. Oh, Carolyn. And she says, where did you get it? At Ross. And then she would not understand it. I had to give some help. So now, yeah.
And I have the same talk. And it's better on the Elke.
I don't know about
Oh, Ross.
See, no,
Okay. Well, I'm from Spur. Do you want me to interpret that? In Spur, we know German quite well. Not.
I might need some help. So if somebody doesn't understand me, please raise your hand.
Yes.
Because, anyway, ladies, I really, really do appreciate you asking me to tell my story. And I actually feel honored to do this. So, and today is a special day because they were talking about...
Could you move that over just a little bit so I can see you?
Actually, Susan and I begged, pleaded, and bribed her to get here.
Am I in your way?
No, you're not my way.
This is actually the last one I did. I can see my notes. The last time I got so carried away, I never even looked at my notes. But anyway, I do thank you. I thank you that you want to hear my story. I personally don't think it's that exciting, but maybe it is to someone else. And I also know that everyone in this room has a story. And so, anyway, let me get started. Today's a special day. 52 years ago, I was on the Atlantic, crossing the ocean to come to America. And but we'll get to that later. Right now, I want to take you back all the way to the Second World War. And I was born in the early 1940s. And my father was an officer in the German army. And because of that, we were stationed in a town that now it's Czechoslovakia. But at that time, in 1941-42, it was occupied by the Germans. As you all know, Hitler went crazy, and he just invaded all Europe, and he thought we were going to conquer the whole world. And we all know that was a bad thing that happened. But when he took over, Germany was in a bad recession. There were no jobs. People were standing in soup lines. And when he came to power, he put everybody to work. He started building roads, highways. Germany has the best highways in all Europe. But he used them for, later on, for tanks, for the war. Of course, anyway, but the Germans worshipped him for a long time because they didn't realize what he really was doing. They heard rumors that he was killing Jews, and my father would come home on leave, and he said, it is true. He would tell the family. He would say, it is very true. I can smell the smoke wherever he was stationed. So this was going on for sure. But anybody could say anything against him or against his regime, they would get picked up too and taken to a concentration camp. So you had to keep quiet. Anyway, in 1945, in January, I guess the snow was that deep, the Russians were coming, and they were going east. And here we were living in Czechoslovakia. So we were told, you all pack a suitcase and leave because the Russians are coming and it's going to get crazy. So anyway, they said, but the Germans going to stop them. They're not going to let them get to Berlin because once the Russians get to Berlin, to the capital, then they won the war. So they said, no, we're gonna stop and just pack a suitcase and get out for time being. Hopefully have a destination to go to. And my mom and I, my grandparents were living in central Germany. So we had a place to go to, but it took us a long time. And so they said, hurry up, you gotta go because they're coming, the Russians are coming, is what everybody was saying. And my mother packed the suitcase and we went to the train station, and the train was gone. So here we were, we went back home, she got a sled, and she put me on the sled and she says, well, we'll just walk all night till the next town and maybe get on a train to get further inland, further west. Well, we walked all night. She had a suitcase. I was on the sled, and she turned around and she says, you were just white like a snowman. You were frozen back there. So she made me get up, and she said, you walked all night. And she never said anything. I was 3 years old at that time. She says, just walk. And then somehow, I don't remember quite, but somehow we were very fortunate. One of the big trucks that had German soldiers on it, and it was enclosed, and they had their maps where they did all their planning and everything. They picked us up. My mom and me, I don't know if there were other people, I don't remember now. This is more hearsay what I'm saying. And it was warm in there. They had a stove, they had a fire on that truck. So, but what I do remember is because they had to, or maybe I remember it from what my parents, my mother told me, it was going down the road, we were heading west, and all the people that were escaping too, with suitcases, and there were some, they had wagons and horses and buggies, because we had no automobiles. So they were sitting on there, and because of the high snow, and they had to make room for those trucks to get through, a lot of them, they tumbled into those ditches, and some of them just, the elderly, they just, who knows if they ever, they might have frozen to death, and we don't know. So, all in all, we were very, very lucky to get on this truck, and they took us to the next town, and we tried to get on a train again, and because they only couldn't take us to a certain point. And so we get on this train and keep going. And we hadn't really had, I think we had some food on this truck, but then time went by, there was nothing to eat, nothing to drink. My mother said, the next time the train stops, I'm going to go to the inside the station and get some milk. Well, she left me, and she tried to get off the train, and at that moment the sirens went on. Well, they were going to have an air raid, and it's all those R's, when they were starting to bomb the city. So they said, everybody back on the train and keep going. So no food, no drink, we just kept going. But we did get to our hometown. My mother had grown up there, she was born and raised there. My grandparents had a big farm there and everything. But when we got there, the farmhouse was packed with refugees. So there was no room for us. So we had to, my mother and we had to live in somebody else's house for a length of time until they got these refugees all situated and sent them to different towns and everything. And then we were finally able to get into our own home, which was built like in the 1400s, had walls like this, and it's still standing. And still in the home is still in the family. And then what happened, that was in January of 45. Then in around May 45, I think, the war was over. Well, and this was good that this happened. The Allies, I'm talking the Americans, the English, the French, and the Russians, they all went together against the Germans to stop this crazy war, and stop this crazy man, what he was doing. And we could, from a distance from our village, we could see the bombs falling. And, but what is interesting, my grandparents had a place in the city, and and they would go from the village to the city. And one time they were staying in the city in their apartment, and the air, I mean, they were warned they had to go down in the bunker because there were going to be bombs again and everything. And my grandmother, she left the Bible in the windowsill. And she always told that story. She says, do you know, a bomb went right by next, but that room with that Bible stood. And you know, it's kind of, you wonder sometimes, you know. But that left an impression on the family. And what I want to inject here too is that the part of Germany where I'm from, they were followers of Martin Luther, the reformist that came along in, I think he lived from 1483 to 1546, and he translated the Bible from English, from Latin into German, because at that time the Catholic Church kept everybody in the dark. The Bibles were printed in Latin. And I just read this recently because I did some training on Martin Luther. He was, another thing, he was born in the same county where we came from. And I didn't know that until just recently when I looked it up on the internet. And they said he was riding a horse and there was a big thunderstorm and lightning went down. And he was a Catholic, so he called on one of those saints to save him. And they said, if you save me, I'll become a monk and I'll serve the church for the rest of my life. And that's what he did. He actually became a monk and he took the Bible. The Bible was not available to everybody, and like I said, most people wouldn't understand it because it was in English. And he studied it and he translated it into German, and then he opened the people's eyes and said everybody was paying money because the Catholics told them, if you pay money, then your soul will go into heaven. In fact, there was something that rhymes in German, and they were going through the country saying that, and everybody was putting money and giving money to the church. But he opened their eyes that this was not so. And of course, he did that. They thought that they were going to kill him, but he didn't anyway. But my whole area where I'm coming from, they were followers of Martin Luther. They were Protestants. Okay, that was good, fine and good. Now, in 1945, when the war was over, we were all very happy. Thought, well, thank God this is over now. But then it didn't take very long. We see the Americans, the French, the English, and the Russians, they won the war. So now they divided Germany into 4 parts. And guess what? Where we were living, it became Russian territory. So the Russians, they were in our town for a long time. And it was really scary because they would get drunk at night and they'd come and hit on the doors and everything, but nothing ever really happened. But anyway, what I remember is, as times were bad, there wasn't very much food available. They would get all the milk from the milk cows and put it in one of those aluminum tubs and take bath in it. They said that was good for their skin. And you know, it is good for your skin, milk bath. they did that back then. I remember that. But anyway, later they removed the Russian soldiers because they had trained enough Germans to do what they wanted us to. Anyway, it was communism. And as we all know, communism is anti-God. So the first thing they did is stop all church services and ridicule the pastors. And they also came and took the guns. And I have it's my second cousin, my mother's first cousin. He tried to hide his in the backyard, and somebody saw it and reported it. Guess what? He went to prison for 5 years. So you do as they tell you to do. They take your guns, they do away with the church, they took all of our land and made collective farms out of it. So you did not own your land anymore. The landowners, they were now employees of the government. And you got paid by the government. And the thing is, all the small businesses, they fizzled out. Everything, of course, we had our health system was all run by the government. Everything. That's communism for you. They will run everything. The government runs it. The government is God. And what we had to do as school kids on Sunday mornings, like instead of going to church, they gathered us up and put us on trucks, and we had to work out in the fields. We did that many, many Sundays. So anyway, my father ended up in West Germany after the war. My mother and I, we were with my grandparents in East Germany. So they were apart. He had a good job at the Dutch border as a custom agent. So guess what my mother did? At that time, the borders were not that, they had patrolmen out. I mean, they had, like border patrol out there and police and all that. She would, at least once a month, she would go to the border, take the train to the border, cross the border at night. Then she would hitchhike all the way down to the Dutch border and see my father. And he would buy all the things that you couldn't get. For instance, cocoa, chocolate, coffee, good coffee beans, oranges, bananas, lemons, all that. You could not buy that in East Germany. It was not available. So she would bring those things back to East Germany. She would hitchhike back to the border, and then at night she would cross it and get on the train and come back to our hometown, and people were waiting for her goods. The mayor, the chief of police, well, she went to school with all of them. So they were waiting. When she got off the train, they were waiting because they wanted her goods, and she got paid. And then, well, she must have done it more than once a month, because I remember us getting on bicycles. None of us had cars, no telephones, nothing. So we would get on our bicycles and have these bags, those tote bags hanging on the bicycles, and go from one village to another. And she had established customers, and they bought from her. But she was very generous. She always gave more because they really needed that stuff. There was things that you just could not get in East Germany, and the productivity in East Germany was going downhill because in communism, you don't have free enterprise. So it takes the incentive out of trying to build a business. You're employed by the government. And coming from a farm country where I come from, sometimes you got to put in more than 8 hours. And if there's a storm comes and you had to bring the crop in, well, you work till night. But they didn't do that anymore. They put in their 8 hours and went home. And they still got their paycheck. But so everything went downhill. And that's what happens in communism. It is just not going to work.
Elke, could she have gotten in trouble for that?
Yeah, but it went well for a long time. It really did. And then they came and warned her, and they said, Rainey, you're on the black list. You better change your tactics. And they also asked her to join the Communist Party, and her sister, my aunt, joined the Socialist Party because they said they were going to take the homestead. By them joining the Socialist and Communist Party, well, we were safe. We kept our home. And we actually lived pretty good because we had a big garden around the home, and we had goats, and we had chicken, and we had geese, and we had all, my grandparents had all that. But the land was gone. That was now taken by the government. And so, anyway, needless to say, her marriage broke up because, we were living in East Germany. She couldn't get me out. She didn't want to leave me. So he had a good job. He was in uniform, and there were a lot of widows after the war. So many times when she got there, there was a woman in this apartment, and she had to deal with that too. So needless to say, after a few years, that marriage broke up. And so he had to send, since he worked for the government, he had to send money for me. And my mother says, well, I don't want East German money. I want West German money. So she had a bank account opened up in West Berlin. And at that time, that was before the wall, we were able to go, and I went with her. We'd get on a streetcar or subway, and it would stop in the French sector, or in the American sector, or in the English sector, and so there was no problem. At that time, you could do that. So she stopped crossing the border since he remarried and had another family and all that. And so now she let the money accumulate, and then we'd take a trip to Berlin, and I went with her quite a few times too. And that went well too for a good while. And then, like I said, she was told to quit it, and she took a course in politics, and she went to work for them. And she was a secretary. She took everything down in shorthand. She went to those meetings at night and typed it the next day, and I was practically raised by my grandparents because she was gone all the time. But once or twice a year, she and I would still go to Berlin, and we were able to do this. And we would get the money out of the bank and buy new clothes because everything in East Germany was cheap. Materials were cheap. You could tell the difference. When we got back on that streetcar, boy, those people were in East Berlin, they were staring at us. They said, whoa, you know, because we had the shoes and everything. It was good quality. And so that went on for a while, and she was working for them, and then she remarried, and somehow they got the idea we had to get out of East Germany. And I thought, well, how that's going to work. Because in those days, the only people that got a visa to leave East Germany were people over 60 that were on Social Security, because then the government wouldn't have to pay them Social Security once they're gone. So those kind of people were able to get out. But now here they were young, in their 30s, you know, and I was, 14, 15 something. So she convinced them, and I still think they did it because they bought all those goodies from her. For a visa for my stepfather to leave East Germany, and he went right across the border, and he got a job for Volkswagen. There's the main factory was right there. And so then she was planning for, she said, well, I must go tell him that I'm going to go over there and bring him back. And evidently they believed her. You know, I don't know how all this went, but they believed her. But before she left, I tell you what we did. See, she left when we left from the Russians there, we left the whole house full of furniture and everything behind. Now, because of all what she did, because she was so industrial, we have nice things. In East Germany, people were giving us crystal and everything just to get the stuff that she was bringing in from West Germany. And so she sold everything. I don't know how she did it, but she took all the money, the furniture, she sold it, but they could not move one piece of furniture until after I left. And they all went along with that. It was amazing sometimes. But she also, the things that she wanted, personal things that you know when you go to visit, you only take a suitcase. So she started mailing that, shipping it from different post offices. What we did, she and I did, we went on a bicycle, because if you send it all from that one post office there in that little town in East Germany to one certain address, and you do this 3-4 times, it'll look suspicious. So what we had to do is get on a bicycle, go to all these different towns, and mail these packages to different addresses in West Germany. And later on, we got it all back together. So she got things out, pictures, you know, that normally you cannot do because you're just going for a visit over there. And so she left, and I didn't want to leave because I was, 15, barely 15, and I had my friends, and I grew up in this communism. And I was indoctrinated. Yes, I thought that they told me capitalism is bad. In capitalism, the workers are exploited. That's what we were taught, because we were taught the Communist Manifesto that was written by Karl Marx, and it says in that manifesto, it says that the capitalists exploit the workers. They're exploiting them. And so they said, oh, we have to free the whole world. They thought eventually my Russian teacher, I still see him going up and down, and he was Russian angel. Yeah, it was mandatory to learn Russian. So he was my German and Russian teacher. And he was such a communist. He would be walking up and down in that classroom, and he would just, I don't know where he got this from. He said, there'll be a time where all humanity will reach a level in consciousness where they will work for this, whether you're a doctor or a baker or shoe repairman, everybody will work for the same amount of money. There's equality. That's what he was professing. Everybody's equal. You don't have anybody like you have in capitalism, people that make good money, but you know they're the people that give the jobs. You don't have that in communism. So everybody's equal. Everybody's going to do their job, whatever their talent is, and that's what he believed. And that's really what's in the manifesto. That was the idea, and he also thought Russian was going to be the world language one of these days. They really thought, the Russians really thought, the Soviets, they really thought they were going to, spread this all over the world. And what scares me sometimes when I see how I don't know what the government is doing at times, it reminds me of what I went through in East Germany. And I think there are too many people that are not aware of what is going on, and I think they should be, and really check out who they vote for, and that this will not happen, because I'm afraid it could just sneak up right here in this country, because I see too many signs of it. And that's scary. And that's why I'm telling this story, because I lived it. And the young people, because I went to school and we learned this from day one, so I believed it for a long time that was the way to live. And it was really hard for me to leave East Germany, but my grandmother finally said, Elke, they're going to come and pick you up and put you in a home, and they're really going to make a communist out of you. I probably already was one. I mean, really, I didn't want to go, and then I did go. And I had a visa. My mother had that arranged to go. That's why it was not that dramatic. But what was kind of dramatic is my aunt had to take me from our little village to a bigger city, and you had to get on that special train that would leave maybe once a week from East Germany into West Germany. And you get on it. And there were mostly elderly people. They had visas to, like I said before, they had visas to leave from East Germany. So I was probably the youngest one on it, and I had my little suitcase right under there. And just before the train crossed over from East Germany into West Germany, suddenly there were Russians all over the place. They were on top of the train, they were under, they were on the side, and they went through that train with a fine-tooth comb, checking everything, and you know why? For a long time, because people had tried to smuggle people out in trunks. The elderly people that was allowed to leave, they could take trunks. They were not just going for a visit. Like I was going for a visit, I just had a little suitcase. And I found out that they checked that train because, I'm sure, I don't know if they found anything the time when I crossed, but they did find them in the past. So then I got to West Germany. And my mother picked me up from the train station, and we walked to where we are, and I thought, oh, no. I started crying. I said, I want to go back. We lived, they had a room in the attic, one room, just small. All three of us lived in it, ate in it, slept in it, cooked in it, and everything. Because of the refugees that had left East Germany, and West Germany tried to rebuild, but they couldn't fast enough. Even though, and I have to say, there was right after the Second World War, they had the Marshall Plan with America, which worked out really well. I mean, it was good for the Germans and it was good for the Americans. West Germany got rebuilt, but they couldn't build it fast enough. In East Germany, nothing happened. There was no material. The apartments and everything that were bombed out, for years and years they were demolished because you couldn't get any material to rebuild it. But coming from a big farm home with a big yard around and livestock and all that to a one room, all of us in there, that was kind of disappointing. And see, I wasn't really convinced yet that this was going to be better over here than it was in East Germany. And but I learned later. I learned fast, and it was a lot. It was a lot better. And finally, I ate banana every day. What a thrill to get a banana, because now we really had it, And oranges, there were everything. I mean, you could just, get all these goodies that we didn't have in East Germany. And what was I going to say? Well, we were on a waiting list to get an apartment, but it just didn't happen fast enough. So the W Factory, they opened up dealerships all over the world, some in South America and Rio de Janeiro, some in Cape Town, South Africa, and in San Francisco. So they asked for people that would want to go to a foreign country, and they would sponsor the family to work on Volkswagens. And so we said yes, because who knows how much longer we're going to live in this one room. And it wasn't just that, because you had no running water, you had to carry, in buckets, you had to upstairs. And then we didn't have a bathroom. The landlord would let us use the indoor bathroom once in a while, or let us take a bath in it because the room was too small to set up a bathtub. And I mean, a year of that's a lot. And you can take of that. So anyway, so my stepfather was the factory. They sent him to San Francisco. Now my mother had a problem because she belonged to the Communist Party, and when we applied for our visas to come to the United States, well, at that time Eisenhower was president, and he checked that out, and they wouldn't let any communists in, and I don't blame him. So she had to get proof that she did this job. She had to get signatures from people that knew her. She typed up a letter and she sent it to all these people. They had to sign it. She got 30 signatures that she did the job only because to make a living. And she was not a communist at heart. And I wasn't either. I belonged to the youth group, and I participated in all the speeches, and I have to say I did a lot of speeches, and I went right along with them and did all this good stuff. But anyway, so it was kind of disappointing for me, because I left all my friends and all the excitement that I thought we had. You know how it is when you're barely 16. And then you go to school in West Germany. The history that they taught was different than what they taught in East Germany. So that was hard too, to switch, because they taught one way, communism is good, that's the only way to go. And now later on I learned differently. And so he went all the way to San Francisco. My mother, it took us 6 months longer, and they were both almost ready to give up. He wrote, we couldn't talk because at that time we couldn't afford telephone calls. He would write, I'm ready to come back. He missed my mom and all this. And I said, no, we got to go. I've told everybody that we're going to America. We got to go. You cannot let me down now. I said, oh no, what are they going to think? I wrote to all my friends in East Germany. I was going to go to America. What a big deal that was. They thought, wow. So I kept pushing. I said, no. I said, tell him to stay over there. We get there. And we did then. in 1958, we had to take the ship out of Bremerhaven on November the 4th. And we did get to the United States. Well, it was supposed to take 8, maybe 9 days, and I've told that before. But there was a big hurricane out in the Atlantic. And this captain, he needed to get to New York City because there were passengers waiting. And so they had told him to make a big, get around that hurricane, but he didn't skirt it. He got pretty close because it got real wild. That ship was going like that, and I was seasick, and they had to raise the boards on the dining room tables, and nobody could go out on deck because the water was splashing over. It was really wild. It was wild. But we left on the 4th of November, and we got to New York City on the 15th of November. So it took 3 or 4 days longer. And I will never forget when they said, "Oh, we're getting close." Not to get emotional. There's the Statue of Liberty. And all of us went out on deck and saw it. And we were so excited. So excited. And one man that was there, he had a heart attack. He was so excited over it. Because we had known him, we had eaten with him and all that, and they carried him off. They put a blanket over him and carried him off. And because everyone that was on that ship, they really wanted to come to America because we knew that was going to be the greatest thing ever happened to us. And it was. Even though we couldn't speak the language, my mother had French in school, I had Russian, my stepfather didn't have a foreign language, and we knew we had to learn English. I did not expect anybody to learn German. I knew I had to learn English, and I think...
Reach on, sister.
And I managed. It didn't take me very long. I did get a job, even though the first job I had, I'll never forget, was in San Francisco on Powell Street and Market Street with Moore's Cafeteria, and I had to go there at 4:30 in the morning from the Mission District, which was not the best district anyway. But I got there and I spilled because I couldn't understand whether they wanted a pot of coffee or a cup of coffee or tea. It was kind of difficult, and I didn't know. Then they put me on the vegetables. And I didn't know the names of the vegetables, and all that. But I did hang in there for almost 6 months. And then there was this lady. She was a cashier, and she was a German, and she was married to an American. She says, "Elke, Bank of America is looking for file clerks. I think that would be more what you would like to do." And I said, okay, give me the others. I went there, and he was so nice. He didn't expect me to speak English very well. He just gave me a math test, and that was all right, because I could do that. He gave me an address to be there at 8:15 on Monday morning, and that's how I started. I worked for 12 years in the bank in California, and I worked up as my English got better, I'd go to school at night, and I went from file clerk to teller, and then wall teller, and I got a collection. Anyway, I'm almost coming to an end now because pretty soon we get to an area I don't even want to talk about. But I'm just wondering if I forgot something. Oh, yeah, the wall. Then, see, we were able to go from East Berlin into West Berlin because there was no wall at that time. The wall was built. They started to put barbed wire up and stuff like that. And then I think from what we were talking today, was it in 1961? See, by that time I was already in the United States, is when they put the wall up. And what they used old buildings. I have pictures of it actually. Old buildings, and they did the wall. And now those people, some of them, they dug tunnels underneath from East Berlin into West Berlin. And a lot of them made it. And some of them, they swam the river Spree, and so a lot of them got shot and killed. So the pictures that I have, there's a lot of crosses and wreaths memorizing the people that got shot that were trying to leave East Berlin into West Berlin. And this is why I'm asking, why would people risk their lives to leave if there wasn't something wrong with communism? There's something wrong. Why would you risk your life? You would stay there, right? So this is what I said. I hope we never even get close to anything like that in this country. This is really why because it was, and even later on in the years when I would go back to visit, I went back a few times, and they would invite me to their homes, and every once in a while, that was still when East Germany was communist, under communist. Someone would get up and walk around the house, and I said, "Why are you doing that?" "We have to check and see if anybody is listening. They know, they saw the car outside. I rented a car when I was there, and they know that we're talking." And they were. Everybody lived in fear. You could never relax because you had to be so careful what you said. You couldn't say anything against the government. And like they said, they had to go around and check and make sure nobody was listening in because they were afraid they were going to be turned in. So it's just, yeah.
I remember you telling something about taking your bed in a suitcase.
Yeah.
And
Oh, you
tell about that.
In Germany, everybody has it's a feather comforter. Now, we have them here too now in the United States, but when I first came to the United States, everybody just had a blanket. And I thought, and we didn't have blankets, we had feather comforters, or feather beds we call them. What would you call them? Feather pillows, big pillows that you cover yourself with. And I had one in my suitcase leaving East Germany to go to West Germany. And my thought was, when that policeman stood in front of me, and I showed him my papers, and he must have wondered, she's young, and all these elderly people. And I said, if he had opened my suitcase and would see the feather bed that I was taking, he would say, well, now she's not just going on a visit. She must. That's what I was worried about. You never knew what was going to go through their mind and what they would do next. They would see something into it. It was. People live in fear, and this is what is so scary. And I was going to say something else, and now I forgot.
But didn't you just get out of East Germany by just a few hours before they come to your grandparents to get you, the Russians?
No, they did. I got out, and they did not come for me. In fact, just last week I talked to a school mate. She called me because she wants me to come next year for the 50th, well, it's actually 51-year school reunion. And she says, Elke, she says, the last time we talked, she says, it was New Year's Eve, she says, we were having at a party, and suddenly you just covered your mouth and you said to me, I'm leaving and you will not see me for a long time. See, I couldn't tell anybody that I was leaving. And she says, you left, and I haven't seen her since then. And you just couldn't, everything had to be done in secret. And after I left, a few days, then the people came and picked up the furniture that my mother had gotten the money for. They all knew about it, but everything had to be kept hushed up. You could not, because you never know. I could have been easily, they could have easily come and gotten me. So, but I'm thinking, if I think about it now, and this is what I wanted to say, really, when we came to the United States, we thought, oh, everyone who comes to the United States is going to get rich. They all come for material things. That's the big deal, to come to the United States.
Hey, Elke, I was just wanting to tell people that may not know this. It wasn't just the Germans that thought Hitler was great. He was Time Magazine's Man of the Year in 1932.
Was he really?
Yes. As unbelievable as that sounds.
He probably got a Nobel Peace Prize.
my grandfather, he believed everything. And he thought Hitler was the greatest man. And my grandmother's, and he'd go up there, they would listen to his speeches, and he would go up there and shake his hand. And my grandmother said, Fritz, why do you do that? He's not good. And do you know, he belonged to the Nazi party, but he was too old to really be active. And when in 45, when the war was over, The Russians picked him up and sent him to Siberia for 4 or 5 years. And because he belonged to the Nazi party. But what I still don't understand, the Nazis that were really active, and we have it in our town, when the Russians came and took over, they switched. They called them turncoats back then. They switched from Nazism right into communism, and they became big officials, a lot of them. And they didn't go to Siberia. But like my grandfather, who just thought Hitler was great and joined his party and never really did anything, just was a paying member, he had to go to Siberia. And so this is, you know, it was just very crazy. You just never know who you could trust. And when I was over there, because one of my girlfriends I went to school, she became a school teacher in the school that we went to, and I said, oh, I'll just come by there tomorrow and I'm going to see some of the teachers were still teaching. That's over 20 years ago. I was on one of my visits. Oh no, you are now from a capitalist country. You cannot come near the school. And now they're checking everybody because they're afraid, you know, they're going to smuggle in a bomb or something. But back there in East Germany is because I came from a capitalist country. I could not come near their schools. I had to meet them somewhere else. And I did. But anyway, what I really wanted to say is that I am the only one, I think, out of my town that is a Christian. And I talked to my cousins, I talked to other friends that I have over there. We talk for birthdays and holidays, and none of them go to church. I'm the only one. And they know already on Sundays when they can't call me until maybe after 1 or 2 o'clock. Oh yeah, you go to church and you all go to eat. They know that already. They know that already. But they still don't go to church. So what I feel like, I think I was destined to come here to become a Christian. And even though at one time I thought that I came here for material, to gain materially, I think really it all boils down is to find God, to find Jesus, to be baptized for my sins. And I think that is probably the greatest thing that could ever happen to anybody. And I feel bad that all my friends that I went to school with, and I hope to see quite a few of them next year, they don't have that.
If your friends chose, though, they could go to church now.
I
But
think
the
they can
communist
now.
influence on their lives.
Yeah, because see, even my, you know, I don't know, there's no connection there. They have those big, beautiful churches, and the church bells ring at certain times and all that, but nobody goes to church. And then they don't study the Bible either. I said, what do you turn to when there is something happening in your life that, you know, we have something. Oh, we'll just know we're going to make it. Yeah, that's just the way they are. They just, no spirituality whatsoever. So I don't know if they knew, you know, that I come to ladies' Bible class and all, study the Bible, and I have told them to, but they don't even want to hear it.
So you still have family?
I have a cousin and my mother's sister. My mother's 96 and her sister is 91, and they still live in, well now it's all one country. Yeah, they still live in the old homestead. And yeah, and it's, I was going to say, even now they tell me, see, the last time I was in Germany was 23 years ago, and it was still separated. And you drive from West Germany into East Germany, it'd be like night and day. Because they still had the ruins, the potholes, the everything, you know. And on my very last visit, my aunt, the one that's still alive, her husband was a communist. And we used to talk to him, and do you know the last time I was there, and then he died after, he said to me, I was leaving, and he says, you know, communism just does not work. He finally realized, he was in his 80s. It took him that long to realize it does not work. And he says, I wish they'd shoot them all. He said it in German, but he said, I wish they'd go up there and shoot them all. Because in communism, the thing is, what I found out too, is the elite up there. Oh, and after we got out of East Germany, because the mayor and the police chief and everybody was instrumental in getting us those visiting visas, well, that all changed. They couldn't stay in their hometown anymore. They had to take the jobs in other towns, so none of this could happen anymore. You know, so nobody, and it really is. It is really bad. I think I said it all.
Did the family get their land back?
Yes, they
After
did.
the wall came down?
Yes, and they sold it because they're not farmers. But my mother had signed everything because her sister took care of my grandmother, and so when we left, my mother said, "I'll never need. We'll need it." She just signed it off. She said, "It's all yours. You're taking. If it ever should come back to the family." So my cousin has it. You know, they have it, and I don't know if they're leasing it out. I know they're not doing any farming, but yeah, it was given back to them when it was.
How did you get to Texas?
We'll talk about it.
She doesn't want to talk about that.
Sorry, I asked.
No, that's okay.
It's your story, Elke.
Well, I was gonna cut it off. It was crazy. I got to Texas, to Del Rio, Texas, and I ran a Western wear store for 10 years, and that's where I met Harold. I was divorced when I met him, and he was, his wife had died. So, but anyway, yeah.
You got a jewel.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And so did he.
Oh my goodness. I think I just, but I will say, because they don't have, what I wondered for a long time, what made this nation so great? This is what I thought for a long time. What is the difference between the United States and those European countries? And later on in life, I found out this country was founded on spiritual principles. The founding fathers, and we had the session, we saw all those videos, how they founded this country. And that's what made this country great. And it had God in everything. And in those communist countries, they take God out. And I think if there is no God, those countries are going to go down. And
God's going to bless us.
right. And we need to keep God in everything and go back to these principles. I really, really believe that. And there's this one thing, Susan has it on one of her signs: "Blessed is the nation whose God is Lord." Proverbs 14:34. And I really think that is so true. And this is why this country was so blessed and great. A great country, known all over the world. Yeah, they said to me, "Elke, you're going to come next year." I said, "I'm going to try." Oh, that'll be the highlight of the whole reunion. You're coming from America. So I hope I'll make it. I may have the heart attack like that man had, but he can't. Because I get so excited thinking about it.
They're not gonna want you to tell your story now to them.
But anyway, I think that pretty much wraps it up. But I lived in California 12 years. And then I lived in Texas 10 years. And then I met Harold. And then I went to Delaware and Pennsylvania and worked in his stores. And then we came back to Texas and built houses. And then we had a farm, and then we came up here. So it's been kind of interesting life.
Elke, when you came to America, did the Americans believe the atrocities that were going on in Germany? Because I was told that the propaganda here was that those things weren't happening.
You know, I remember working at Bank of America, and there was a Jewish lady, and she spoke German. And both of her parents they were doctors, and they were shot by the SS in Berlin. And she and her husband, they somehow got out. And she said to me, "Elke, that was the happiest day of my life when I got on that ship to come to America. And so she told that story. But I didn't speak enough English to really know what the Americans were thinking at that
Because I
time.
had asked, my grandparents came over from Germany,
They did.
and, you know, they said that my mom and dad lived in California at that time, and,
Uh-huh.
you know, a lot of the, after the first
They
war,
didn't believe that this was.
they said, that, I said, why didn't somebody go over there to stop it? And they
I
said,
know.
well, no, but we were told that wasn't, we didn't know it.
They didn't know. I have heard that too. And you know, we were just talking earlier, there were even Jewish people that turned on their own Jews and turned them in if they thought it was profitable in one way or another. And then there were Germans that were hiding the Jews and helped them to get, you know, so.
But if you tour one of the concentration camps, you know that it happened. And they made those local people go out there because they were in denial. They were like, no.
Right.
But they made them go out there and look.
Yeah.
And Eisenhower ordered them all to
Exactly.
make pictures of everything.
Eisenhower,
Right.
he showed them. And so I hate that when I hear people trying to deny it now. I'm like,
No, I know it
They
happened.
marched, they took their shoes off and they
Right.
marched
They
them in
really
there.
did. And like I told my father, he
Gas
said
and
he
environment.
smelled it, that they were burning them.
Well, Life magazine had a front page spread of the people laying down in the ditches,
Yes.
all of that.
Yeah. No, I think it really happened. But you know, the Germans were in denial, a lot of them were, and that's why he would come and tell, but he had to be careful, because if you said too much, a lot of them disappeared. My mother said they were standing in line in one of the butcher's shops, and there was one lady in line, and she said, well, we never had to stand in line to buy meat before Hitler came to power. She was never seen again. Somebody told her. So under Nazism or fascism, and fascism is where the elite rules everything and nobody can say anything. It's like a dictator. He was like a dictator. And in communism, it's all run by the government. The government is their god, and everything belongs. Well, they said they want to distribute the wealth. Everybody's supposed to be equal.
Do you know whatever happened
Spread
to
your
your
wealth
biological
around.
dad?
To
Do
my
you know
mind.
whatever happened to your dad?
I heard somebody say
Yeah.
that recently.
I did. I saw him one time because he had to give his consent for me to immigrate to the United States because he was still paying. See, I was only 17 when I came, and so I wanted to see him. And he lived in Cologne, and so I took a train, and I met his wife and his 5 children. So I have 5 half brothers and sisters somewhere in Germany. But he died of a heart attack. My son is now 49, going to be 49, so 49 years ago, the same year my son was born. His wife wrote me then that he died of a heart attack. And then I think 3 or 4 years later she died, and some of those children had to go into orphanages. And I don't know where they are.
But that book, Corey Ten Boom's The Hiding Place, that goes into great detail, and we toured that place.
Uh-huh.
And I stood in the hiding place.
What I think is kind of ironic is that we were founded on the belief in God,
Yes.
and now Russia is going back to ordering the Bible taught in schools, and we need to send Bibles over there,
They learned their
and ours
lesson.
are taking them out.
Right. This is the, the United States should learn from what happened to us
I
in
know.
Europe and Asia, because they are going back to it now.
Yes, they are.
And they are going back to, free enterprise and stuff like that. Because they know it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and why there are people here in this country that want to change it too,
We just need more people like you telling your story.
That's right.
You think so?
So tomorrow night on Channel 4,
You don't have to do the just show the video.
Oh, my
Yeah,
gosh.
Nona's got it on tape.
Yeah. Well, you know what, I forgot that it was gonna be on tape because I said a lot of things that I was just kind of saying on top of my head, you know.
We're still friends.
That's what makes it good.
We're still friends.
We're still free.
Free.
Still saying.
Yes, yes. So anyway, I thank you for listening, and anyway, I feel honored that I was able to tell the story because I know every one of you has a good story to tell too. It's not just me.
Thank you.
You're all welcome.
We're going to close with a prayer.
Okay.
You stay here with us.
Okay.
Dear God, our Father, thank you so much for bringing Elke here to us and for letting her bless our lives. Lord, we pray that as a country we will turn back to you and that the principles our country was built on will once again be the strong foundation, and that you would bless us once again. And may we love you and serve you and do all we can to help these atrocities never to happen again. And thank you again for keeping Elke safe and for bringing her here.